Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody else. It's good to be here with you. So I have a question for us this morning. I think it's a question worth contemplating, a question worth probing, processing. Here's the question. Have you ever done something you didn't want to do? When I was 13 years old, my mom bought me a new skateboard. Actually, my mom didn't have money to buy me a skateboard. I stole it from another kid. That's the first thing I want to bring to your attention this morning that I did that I didn't want to do. Part of my mind said, that's a nice skateboard, take it, he's not looking. Another part of my mind said, that's not right, don't take his skateboard. I took it. And I had a group of friends, and that group of friends were clocking time on a pretty popular hill in San Pedro, California. I grew up in Southern California, and there was this one hill that everybody was talking about in my social circle, in my friend circle. Everybody was talking about this particular hill. And the thing about this hill was that it was pretty steep, and rumor had it on the streets of LA that some kids had gotten up to 60 miles an hour on their skateboards going down this hill. I don't know if that's true. But that was lore. That was street lore. That's what was being said, 60 miles an hour down this hill. The problem is at the bottom of that hill was a busy intersection. And so part of the thrill of the whole situation was to go down the hill, to clock time, and to then somehow dismount the skateboard in time to not go through the busy intersection. And so I had a new skateboard. And part of my mind said, do it. 60 miles an hour. You've got to try at least. And another part of my mind said, that's a really bad idea. And then I had a group of friends who were as idiotic as I was. And that group of friends said, you can do it. Do it. And so I went up to the top of that hill and tightened up my trucks and began soaring down the hill toward the intersection. And apparently I didn't tighten the trucks tight enough. And if there's any skaters here, you know that if they're not tight enough, at a certain speed, the board will begin to wobble. And it began to wobble. And I involuntarily dismounted into the back tires of a car on the side of the road. My mother estimated that 60% of my exposed flesh was covered with wounds and scabs over the next few weeks. Part of my mind said, do it. Another part of my mind said, don't do it. And I did what I didn't want to do, and the results were not fun. They were not pleasant. Now, I think the answer to the question for all of us is yes. Yes, we have all done things we didn't want to do, but there's something about this question that's a little bit complex. It begs the question, another question, a deeper question, well, who am I? Have I ever done something I didn't want to do? Apparently, there's a split personality of some kind going on there, because there's the I that doesn't want to do the thing, and then there's the I that does want to do the thing. So there's some kind of internal psycho-emotional, volitional civil war going on inside of our heads. I want to explore with us this morning the war between your ears. And apparently, I should have titled that differently. It's also the war between my ears, as the examples indicate. By the way, did you all notice that James is growing a ponytail on the back of his head? You're welcome, James.
What do you think?
I dig it. So Christina noticed it, I noticed it, and she said, you should say something about it. And then you didn't? Yes, you did. Your son will testify. I said somebody should say something, someone should make fun of him, and you said, yeah, you should say something about it, and then you pulled it back and you said, no, you shouldn't. So apparently, you've got a war going on between your ears. And then I said to myself as I was walking up, don't do it, Ty. Don't do it. You love James, don't you, Ty? I said, yes, I do. And then another part of my mind said, but it's too fun. I have to say something about it. I want to talk with us this morning about the war going on between our ears. The fact that we're always in process of battling between what we want to do and then sometimes doing precisely what we don't want to do. Now check this out. Scripture understands this internal civil war that's going on inside of us. Notice this in Romans 7, verse 19. Just please appreciate the depth of this language. I mean, this is like the Apostle Paul approximately 2,000 years ago, and this is way before Freud's psychoanalysis. This is way before Carl Jung and Adler and all the great psychoanalysis that has come down to us, and some of it not so great. And this is 2,000 years ago, and Paul summarizes what's going on inside of us. He says, the good that I want to do, I do not. But the evil I do not want to do, well, that I do. Can you identify? You don't want to do it, and then you do it, and then you're thinking, why did I do that? And then there are other things you know you should do, like good things, right? You're like, I really should, and ... whatever that is. And then for whatever reason, you just don't do it. Do you identify? Of course you do. Now let's look at the context of this. Let's go back to verse 14, because Paul's going to flesh out this idea a little bit more. We know, well, right there at the beginning of this particular sentence, there is what's called a given or an assumption, right? There's something intuitive, apparently, that universally all of us know without being told, right? I was not raised in a religious home. I was raised in an atheist home. Didn't know anything about God, Jesus, religion. Never heard of the Ten Commandments. Didn't know anything about anything spiritually, right? But I knew things with no religious instruction whatsoever. Having never been to church and having never read a piece of religious literature, I knew something in my head said, don't take that kid's skateboard. Something was psychologically active inside of me, intuitively, innately. We know something. We know that the law, the context here is basically the law of love, the law of other-centeredness, the law sometimes called the Ten Commandments. You can call them the Ten Commandments if you want. That's cool. There's a context for that. But if you take the 10 commandments and you reduce them, you distill them down to their essence. Well, the same author here, the Apostle Paul, says, I'll tell you what that law is all about. He says, of that law, in the same book, the book of Romans, he says, love does no harm to a neighbor. Therefore, love is the fulfillment of the law. Are you tracking with that language? The law, according to Paul, is love when distilled down to its essence. So we know that the law, that is the law of love, the law of other-centeredness, the law of there's me, and then adjacent to me, there's a bunch of other others that should not be violated by me. In fact, not only should I not violate the other others that I live adjacent to in this world, there are good things that I actually should go out of my way to do for the other others as opportunity affords. Are you tracking with me so far? And I know all of this. As a 13-year-old kid, I know that there's something transcendent. Here Paul calls it spiritual. There's something transcendent about the law of love. By the way, when I use the word love here, I'm not talking about that kind of kind of shallow, wispy, light, white bread kind of, Wonder Bread kind of love that Hollywood is pushing. I'm not talking about a shallow sentiment that's transitory. It passes. It comes and goes. I love you. I love you. I love you so much. Well, I don't love you anymore because, wow, she's hot. Are you tracking with me? Which begs the question, did I ever love the person I said I love when someone more lovable catches my eye? Are you still tracking with me? So there's the I and the I. There's what Freud would call the ego. And there's a battle inside of me. There's a battle inside of my ego. Listen. I'm egocentric. That is to say, I am more conscious of me and what I want than I am, by nature, conscious of what you need, what you want. And there's this pull, there's this tug of war going on inside of me. We know that love is good. We know that the law is spiritual, that there is a transcendent principle that is operating within us psychologically. We know that. How do you know that? Well, every single time you're inclined to do something that another part of your brain says, don't do that. That's what Paul means. You know. This is why back in chapter 1 of this book, Romans, Paul uses this very interesting language universally for the whole human race. And he says that we are without excuse. Why? Because we know. We know. Even if you never, ever go to a church, no missionary comes to visit you, nobody stands up on some stage and blabs stuff at you, preaches a sermon at you, even if you never encounter any spiritual instruction whatsoever, you know. What do you know? You know there are certain things you ought not to do, right? You board public transportation, not in Eugene, we don't have that, but let's say you're in New York. You get on the subway, all the seats are taken, and an old woman gets on, and she's a little rickety. You can tell she's not doing well, and you're 26 years old in the prime of health. You know somewhere inside of you that you shouldn't elbow her out of the way and take the one seat that's available. Don't you know that? 3 of you know that. The rest of you are struggling to know that. But I'm telling you, if you dig deeper in through the layers of your internal weirdness, you know it. You know it. And you know lots of other things as well. You know that the law is spiritual, that love is a transcendent spiritual, but here's what you also know. If you pause to think about it, you also know what he says here. We know that the law is spiritual, but I am carnal, sold like a slave under the dominion of sin. You know that also. You know inside of your conscience, don't you, that this is what you ought to do, and then you also simultaneously know that I'm not equipped for it. There's something fundamentally broken inside of me. Don't you know that? Don't you know that there's something out of sync? Something inside of you that is not so inclined to do what you know you ought to do? Well, check this out. Verse 15, he says, for what I am doing, these things that I'm doing that I don't want to do, for what I am doing, I don't understand. Like, let me put it to you this way. I am a mystery to myself, not just to my wife. I am a mystery to myself. You are a mystery to yourself. Hasn't somebody said to you at some point in your life, why did you do that? And you're like, I don't know, because I didn't want to. I didn't want to, but I did. Okay, so Paul goes on, verse 15 continuing, for what I will to do, that's volition, that's free will, that's power of choice right there, right? The thing I will to do, I'm like, yep, that's the right thing to do. That I do not practice. The very thing I know I ought to do, I don't do. But what I hate, oh, that's strong language, that I do. The very thing that in my sober moments I say, I hate that. I hate that thing. I don't want to do that. That's a bad thing and I don't want to do it. I should eat 1 chocolate donut for breakfast, not 4, right? I know that something problematic is going on inside of me, right? And then, when he comes to the end of his little discourse about human psychology and spirituality, etc., he comes to the conclusion, and the conclusion is both bad news and good news. Oh, wretched man that I am, or woman that I am, who will deliver me from this body of death? Now, this is very interesting terminology here. In ancient Greek culture, and Paul is operating within ancient Greek culture, one of the punishments that would sometimes be inflicted upon really bad criminals, people who did things really heinous that they shouldn't have done, and society judged them and said, you shouldn't have done that. One of the punishments was to take a dead body. For example, if you committed murder, you took another person's life. The sentence would be to have the dead body of the person that you killed strapped to your back, tied to your body. And you would be required to go about your daily rigmarole, having breakfast, doing whatever you do, with a dead body strapped to you, and you're thinking that through because you understand the laws of decay and entropy, and you know what's going on here, right? What's happening is that the dead and decaying body is gradually what? It is eating away at your living flesh, so that bit by bit by bit, you're dying. In fact, your sentence was execution. Execution by carrying about on your body a dead body that would eventually kill you with its decay process. What a horrible punishment, huh? So, oh, wretched man that I am, who will deliver me from this body of death, this second self? Let's call it a second self. You remember the I and the I? So there's a second self. There's me, and then there's the other me. There's the me that says no, and there's the me that says yes to the thing I know I ought to say no to. There's the me that is living, and then there's the dead me that is strapped to my back. I'm carrying around the weight of a second self that is dictating to me certain actions that part of me wants to perform, but are, let's call them, death-dealing actions. That's death-dealing with a hyphen. That is to say, what I'm doing is killing me, but I can't stop doing it. Sometimes we call this addiction, but it's beyond addiction, and it doesn't really have its narrow parameters within chemical addiction like drugs and alcohol. You can be addicted to pity and literally engineer bad things to happen to yourself so that people will come and visit you. Like, whoa, I'm so messed up. Oh, thanks for coming to visit. I feel fine. You can be addicted to shame. There's a song that has a line, addicted to a certain kind of sadness. Some of us are addicted to melancholy, addicted to depression, addicted to negative thoughts about ourselves or about others. But then the good news. Oh, wretched man that I am, who shall deliver me from this body of death, this second self that I'm lugging around that is gradually, incrementally taking my life away? Oh, here's the answer. I thank God through Jesus Christ our Lord. Jesus is the deliverer. He's the one that can cut the straps that hold the dead corpse on the body. The war between good and evil is happening inside of you, inside of me. It's super convenient to completely externalize the battle between good and evil. Whoa, did you guys hear what the Pope is doing? He's bad. Did you hear what Joe Biden is doing? He's bad. You might be actually accurate in your assessment of how bad someone else is. But your accuracy about externalized judgment, right? Whoa, he's bad. She's bad. Look at what's going on over there. Over there. Here's the question. What's going on in here? What's going on in here? The real war between good and evil is happening between our ears. C.S. Lewis articulated it like this. I brought this quote to you probably 1,000 times. Here it is again. There is no neutral ground in the universe. Every square inch, every split second is claimed by God and counterclaimed by Satan. Every square inch, every split second. I'll go a step further. Every thought and feeling and choice, every home, every bedroom where a teenage girl is thinking too many thoughts that are negative, that are pulling her down, claimed by God. God wants that teenage girl and wants the sacred space of her little bedroom to speak peace and comfort and goodness to that little girl, right? Every boy who's tempted to steal a skateboard, claimed, counterclaimed. Literally, every square inch, every split second, and every neurological process is claimed and counterclaimed. So how did the devil approach Jesus? That would be a good question to ask, and we don't have to venture a guess, because we're told exactly how it went down. The devil, this is in Luke chapter 4, the devil taking him up on a high mountain, showed him all the kingdoms of the world in a moment of time. Look at all the glitz and glam. Look at all of this. Look at it. All this authority, the devil says to Jesus, I will give you. And their glory, you will be applauded. You will be celebrated. You will be the most powerful person on earth. For this has been delivered to me, and I give it to whomever I wish. I can give it to you. It's mine. I possess the world and all the structures, all the psychostructures of the world, all the power tripping of the world, all the empires of the world. They're all operating by my principles. That's why, by the way, he can lay claim to them. It's mine. It's all mine. And I'll give it to you. All you have to do is bow down and worship me. So notice this. The approach of the devil is diabolically transactional. I don't want to just say transactional, because not all transactions are bad. The devil is operating on the approach, not just to Jesus, but to you and me, of a diabolical transactional offer. Looks something like this. You give me ellipses, whatever it is, and I'll give you something in exchange. It's transactional, right? So here's a short list of some of what the devil is offering and some of what he's asking for. Give me your time, and I'll give you boredom. I want to pause here and say something about boredom. There's literally no reason to be bored. Life is exciting. There's so many things to explore. There are so many things to take an interest in. There are so many things to light up your frontal lobe with activity. There's beautiful music to be explored. There are stories that other human beings have written that are ingeniously crafted. There are puppies. Nobody likes puppies? There are puppies to be enjoyed. There are cats. I don't understand that one. I'm just throwing it out there. There's no reason to be bored. Why? Because there's butterflies in the world. There are waves to be surfed. There are mountains to be skied. There are trails that are beckoning you in your four-wheeler, Jed, in Australia, in fact. There are all kinds of things. There's no reason to be bored. But if you give your time, if you fritter away your time swiping and scrolling and binge watching and just taking in to your brain everything that this world has to offer, you'll get bored. You'll get bored. You'll be bored silly. You'll come to the place where there's nothing that can float your boat. You'll be surrounded with all kinds of glory, like a friend. You guys, every single human being is a deep well, W-E-L-L, a well, a deep well of beautiful, interesting, fascinating things going on inside of them. If you just find a random person, like your Uber driver. I said to my Uber driver on the way to the airport from Chattanooga to the airport, just got in the car at 5 a.m. and here's this dude. And I just asked a simple question. I just said, hey, so how long have you lived around here? And what do you like and what do you hate? And the whole time he just told me all kinds of fascinating stuff. He said, where are you going? I said, I'm going to Oregon. He said, where exactly is that? I said, that's out west. He said, I've never been there. I said, have you been west of Tennessee at all? He said, well, I went to Ohio once. That's not west. I said, have you ever been like anywhere other than here in Ohio? And he said, no. I'm having this interesting encounter with a fellow human being, and I'm thinking, wow, what a cool guy. He told me all kinds of things that he has done in his life during the drive. And it was just fascinating. Every person, I'm quoting a Bible verse, by the way. The Bible says that every person is a well of deep water. Every person is. If you ask questions and you just listen, and you can do it with strangers, but you can also do it with people you think you know very well. Like before coming out on this trip, my wife and I had to take a drive, kind of a long drive, long locally. We had to take a 1-hour round trip, take her somewhere, drop her off, then pick her up. So on the way back, I said, Sue, so what would you say is the difference in storytelling technique between Leo Tolstoy and Charles Dickens? And what's the psychology of each? And for 30 minutes on the drive, she told me remarkable things about her thoughts and feelings that I would never have access to about Tolstoy and Dickens. She just told me all kinds of fascinating things. I've been with this girl since we were 14. And I just learned beautiful new things about the way she thinks. There's no reason to be bored. Open your eyes, look around you. There are fascinating people, places, things. Make a bucket list, go somewhere. Preferably not Ohio. There's nothing going on there, I've been there. The devil says, give me your attention. And in exchange, he'll give you anxiety. 65% of the female students at the university 5 miles from my house just reported to me. 65% of the females at the university 5 miles from my house are on some kind of anxiety or depression medication. 65% of the females. That's the ones that have openly said, I'm on something. It's estimated that it's more in the vicinity of 75 to 85%, and this is nationwide. Right? Give me your attention. If you look long enough in the wrong direction, you'll just get anxious. Give me your appetites, the devil says, and I'll give you addiction. Give me your sexuality, and I'll give you lust. Give me your money, and I'll give you poverty. By the way, if you're curious how to go broke and stay broke, ask me afterwards. I'll tell you how. It's very easy. But if you want to be a millionaire by the time you're 55 and you're still a teenager, ask me and I'll tell you how. Guaranteed. Math doesn't lie. Math is the best language in the world. Math is so beautiful. It doesn't lie. Give me your emotions and I'll give you depression, the devil says. Give me your life and I'll give you, in the final analysis, when all is said and done, I will give you death. By the time you are 40, 50, 60 years old, you won't be motivated about much. You'll be channel surfing and eating Fritos and calling it life. You give me your life, I'll give you death. Okay, here's the proposition alternative coming from Jesus. This has to be, a short little thing, so I can't give you all the proof for this, but all of this is provable. I didn't make this up. All of this is drawn from Scripture. Jesus says, give me your time and I'll give you excitement. I'll give you adventure. I'll give you cool new things to learn and to do that'll blow your mind. Give me your attention, and the more attention you give to Jesus, you don't get anxiety, you get peace. You're like, life is so cool. I love being alive. Not anxiety, just, I like being alive. Jesus says, give me your appetites and I'll give you freedom. One of the greatest achievements of life, and I want to encourage all of you to pursue this, especially if you're a young person and you're still in the formative years of trying to figure out who and what you're going to be. Listen. One of the best things about life that you can ever achieve is total self-control, where your body doesn't tell you what to do. You tell your body what to do. You're in charge. Like I said to somebody recently who said, will you do X, Y, and Z? And I said, no, I won't, because I'm in charge of me. I'm in charge of me. I'm not a plaything of reality. Now I'm speaking prophetically because I'm as broken and messed up as y'all. But I'm gazing upward at my potential. One of the best things you can experience in life is total self-control, where you are not a plaything of reality or your impulses or whatever your body tells you to do. My body told me, get up to 60 miles an hour toward that intersection. My body is stupid. Part of my mind was saying, don't do that. I did it anyway. I'd probably do it again, truth be told, because there's something exciting about it. But that's on the innocuous side of reality. It's not a moral issue. I suppose if I had hurt that person's car and then, the moral issue was I was on a stolen skateboard. So that was a problem. But the point is, if I give my appetites to Jesus, I'm increasingly more and more free, which is to say, I have more and more self-control. It's exhilarating to be in charge of your physical body, your urges, right? I challenge somebody here, I won't give the name, to do, they want to get in good health, they're not feeling really great, there's some anxiety in their life, and there's some poundage developing that they don't want. I said, do the 36-12 thing. Well, what's that? Fast for 36 hours and then eat for 12 hours. And do that on a cycle until you're exactly at the body weight that you want to be. It's math. It will happen. You will shrink. And you'll feel great. And your brain will fire on all cylinders about the 12th hour. On the 10th hour, you feel like you want to punch someone or commit homicide or eat a sofa, a whole sofa. At the 10th hour, you could eat a whole sofa made of lasagna. But if you get past the 10th hour, you're like, whoa, you're solving the mysteries of the universe. Your brain just starts to just operate the way it was meant to operate. Give your appetites to Jesus and he'll give you freedom, which is to say self-control. Give your sexuality to Jesus and you'll know love. Monogamous love for life with someone that you can trust. Give your money to Jesus and he'll give you wealth in return. I mean, not all of us are going to be financially wealthy. Some of us don't know how to pull that off, but you will be wealthy in the ways that count. You won't be in bondage to maxed out credit cards with 17 to 22% interest. That's not good. And I'm reading body language right now. And some of you have those credit cards. And you can be wealthy. What is wealth at the lowest possible level, the entry-level wealth? Having no debt that's consuming you with nervousness and anxiety. You can buy the things you need. You have a roof over your head, and you're not trying to pay off 22% interest for shoes and purses, for crying out loud. Stop it. Get control of the thing. Emotions. You give Jesus your emotions, and he'll give you happiness in return. You give Jesus your life, and he'll give you eternity. Eternity. So, the proposition before us is slavery or freedom. Your mind, as well as my mind, your mind is a war zone. Your body is a battlefield, and your soul is the territory at stake. That's what's going on. This is universal. This isn't just true of me and 3 other people here this morning. This is true of every single person in the building and every person that you ever interact with. The whole world, that's a universal statement. Every man, woman, and child. The whole world lies under the sway of the wicked one. This is John in 1 John 5:19, but earlier he proclaimed the good news. For this purpose, the Son of God, that's Jesus, for this purpose, the Son of God was manifested. He came into the world. For this purpose, he came into the world, that he might destroy the works of the devil. That's why Jesus came. He came into the world to set you and me free from the collision course with reality that would make us slaves. Jesus came to give us freedom. Give yourself to Satan, and he will enslave you. You will incrementally, thought by thought, feeling by feeling, minute by minute, scroll by scroll, gradually, bite by bite, you will become a slave until you know you do not have control over yourself. You just do whatever the heck your body and your mind tells you to do. The whole time you have that other part of your mind saying no, but you just don't have freedom. On the other hand, give yourself to Jesus and he will set you free. He will set you free. There's a war going on inside of you, inside of me. Every single one of us is experiencing an internal psychological war, a civic war inside of us. There's you and there's you. Which you do you want to be? Have you ever done something you didn't want to do? Of course you have. So have I. But here's the fact of the matter. You and I have the privilege, the awesome privilege, the potential in front of us to be fully operational, psychological, biological, emotional, volitional creatures who do the kinds of things that we actually want to do with that part of our mind that is pointing in the direction of love. Thanks for your time this morning.